Hi everybody, it's me, Willow, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm here with another fun video for all of you guys to enjoy. Today we're going to be doing a little Throwback Thursday retrospective of The Devil Wears Prada, the 2006 film, which is directed by David Frankel, and he is also directing the upcoming sequel, which is coming out on Friday, May 1st. And that's why I wanted to do this little retrospective because it is coming up this Friday. I'm going to see it with my friend, and I am so excited. And I just gave the film a little rewatch, so I thought it'd be a perfect time to do a little review for this film. It is one of my favorite films to watch, give a little rewatch usually once a year around the Met Gala time. I do usually give it a rewatch. It's just such a fun film. I'm a big fashion girly. We can see the Vogues in the background. I'm a big magazine girly, big fashion girly. Love learning about that as well as the film world. Also love the whole just like industry, pop culture, celebrity fashion, all that goodness. So I'm a very big fan of all of that. So Devil's Wear Prada is definitely in my niche. If you guys are interested in future film reviews, make sure you guys hit the subscribe button and hit the post notification button so you don't miss out on any of my content going forward. Like I said, I cover lots of different movies and pop culture. I'm also covering Euphoria season 3 right now and The Testament season 1. So if you guys are subscribed and have post notifications turned on, you won't miss any video I post. I'm also on all the major social media platforms at Willow D Steele. So go give me a follow over there. The Devil Wears Prada, such a big fan of this film. It is incredible with such a fantastic cast. We have Anne Hathaway playing Andy Sachs. We have Miranda Priestley, played by the one and only Meryl Streep, one of her most iconic roles, honestly, one of her big prominent roles of the early 2000s too. Definitely something that many people, I would say, like from my generation, like Gen Z, that's probably like one of our first roles, besides like Mamma Mia, that really put her on the platform for us. Like, really was like, oh, that is Meryl. Like, I know she had her whole shtick in like the 80s and the 90s with her whole like years of being nominated just back to back films. But I feel like the younger generation definitely leaned towards Devil Wears Prada and Mamma Mia. So, love this film. We also have the beautiful Emily Blunt playing Emily, who is Miranda's first assistant. We also have Stanley Tucci, who is highly involved in Runway. He plays Nigel. And we have other notable actors like Adrian Greer playing Nate. And we also have Daniel Singjat playing James Holt. And we also have Lily, which is played by Tracy Toms. And we have Giselle Buchan playing Serena. Like, it's a pretty stacked cast of a 2000s film, and I think this is a really solid film. I do think it's a little cheesy at some points, and I feel like some of the development, for like an early 2000 films is pretty comparable for the time, but I do think it is still very relevant to today, especially with like the hustle culture it is. I know editorial has definitely changed a lot. Like, even Vogue has changed drastically, which is what like Runway and Miranda Priestley is based off in a Wintour. There's a whole little comparison with that. So it's interesting how in about 20 years the editorial scene has really started to change and evolve, move a little bit more online, go behind a paywall, maybe not as many like monthly issues of magazines like we've seen that with Vogue. They've scaled back from 12 issues to 8 issues. So just seeing this, like, I wonder if this is going to be addressed in the sequel at all, because I feel like it's not really talked about too much in The Devil Wears Prada. The idea of like editorial, I guess in the early 2000s, print was pretty popular, like especially with Andy's whole goal of trying to become a print journalist and try and find a column or a magazine to work at. And that's how she finds a Runway, because the only person who gets back to her during her job search is the HR lady that kind of leads her to find this assistant job with Miranda. So I love this film. I just think it is so much much fun, and I really do think it's pushing forward the idea of speaking up and learning to use your own voice and just kind of going out there and achieving your goals. I definitely think this is something I'm trying to achieve these days. I feel like the hustle culture is just so crazy, especially here in Toronto. Like, I can't imagine in New York or in LA. Like, definitely a different beast to conquer than like Toronto, Canada. So I that's like my comparison, but it's just interesting how you get to see this, like, these strong female characters really push forward and grasp what is their dreams and their goals and their aspirations. And that's something I really admire by this film, is all the strong female performances and these characters with a lot of goals and aspirations. I also feel like this film ties into like the business savvy nature as well. We have like this one line, which I think is pretty prominent. I feel like a lot of people kind of talk about it, is how when Andy and her friends are really like tearing down, or I think it might be Christian actually, who is played by Simon Baker. He's like really tearing down Miranda and just saying that she's evil and like she's such a bad boss. And Andy, she always sticks up for Miranda because she knows deep down that even though she is, a pretty bad boss, like just like very harsh and always trying to test you and, making you throw away the steak after you ran out to get it in only 15 minutes, and all these little things, right? But at the end of the day, if she was a man, you would respect her. So I think that is like one thing to really take into account as well, especially with it being 2006, also being the industry of fashion. A lot of times, men in the industry, in business, they just don't take women seriously, even though fashion, it is a female driven and like creative space. It is still prominently like engineered and owned by men, like who are the biggest fashion houses. They're male fashion houses and they are run by men, like the creative directors. It's very hard. There's very few creative directors out there right now of the big fashion houses who are female. And just to see those invisible ceilings still there, and like the levels of trying to break those glass ceilings are very, very still prominent, 20 years later after this film has come out. So I think, being a creative director and, taking charge of these cultural trends and setting the culture forward, it's not an easy feat. And I think showing the business side of that and how Miranda has to navigate this deception and people trying to push her out because she's seen as this like older female in this high position, and they try and put Jacqueline in to become the editor of American Runway over Miranda, and then Miranda has to do some conniving and has to basically put Nigel on the chopping block in order to keep her space. And Nigel, maybe he's drink the Kool-Aid, and maybe everybody around him except Andy has drink this Kool-Aid, but I think like that's just how business goes sometimes. Like, you are at the top of the food chain and you don't want to lose your momentum, you don't want to lose your space. What are you left to do but to, stake your claim and keep your ground, and, put other people into positions and have to, bite some people in the asses in order to get that. Like, isn't that what business and hustle culture is? So I think we see Andy obviously very conflicted with this nature. She doesn't feel like she has this in her. Of course, she's done it to Emily during the Paris trip, and kind of, and I don't know, like I feel like this is a complicated relationship because I do think Andy has set out to do what she did in the beginning of her interview, which is to say, yes, I am different from all these other girls you hire. I am not interested in runway. I don't know who you are. I'm here because I'm career orientated and I need experience, and I need somebody to give me a good reference so I can get a job that I want at a reputable journalist platform that she respects other than runway. Like, 'cause she doesn't really respect runway as an editorial and she sees like, she'd rather be writing about unions and maybe more political stuff, but then she realizes at her time at Runway that just because it's fashion doesn't mean it's not setting the political and social culture of the moment. And she speaks how all these, maybe not like fashion forwarded people are also writing columns and editorials for Runway. So I just think it's really showing the complexity of fashion and female run industries, and how a lot of the time people think they're kind of like one faced and not complex, not deep at all, but in reality, there are so many different levels to them, and people don't realize how little small things have to go in order to make a magazine. And like specifically like the September issue or the May issue, like these are monumental pieces of editorial work that really does lay out the trends for the upcoming season and brings all of, the runway pieces that have been put out for winter, fall, or spring, summer collections, and really dissects that and understands what's going to move forward. So I think Devil Wears Prada really does this well. I do think maybe it falls apart a little bit near the end because, in my opinion, I feel like Andy should have stayed at Runway. Like, I know they're trying to make her a little bit more of like, not like the other girls, and she's trying to have specific morals, but I think she's super driven, and I know she gets like the job that she kind of would prefer afterwards, but I just feel like she would thrive so much at Runway, and I'm interested to see how they bring her back for the sequel and continue this. Like, I'm very intrigued how they're going to bring this full circle. Because I don't think Adrian Greer's Nate is back in the sequel. Or Christian, I don't think he's back either. So I'm just interested to see how they're going to elaborate on what Andy has been doing all this time and why she's brought back to Runway and what's kind of changed in the 20 years since she's worked there as an assistant, and how she's grown as a writer, and like how she would be seen diving back into this space 20 years later. Again, I wonder if they're going to talk more about like editorial and how it's kind of digitized a little bit more. That's be something I'd be interested in. And honestly, I'm just like a big critique of the whole like Nate and friend storyline, just the idea of them really pushing her down when she's trying to strive and she's actually making big strides in her job. Like, it's very obvious that Miranda becomes quite impressed with Andy. She says that she sees herself in Andy. I feel like she could have gone really far in Runway and been very successful because she is a little bit more academic orientated and she's not so fashion forwarded. I think this is also like beneficial if you come in from like a business background or an engineering background, a different background from the prime background that many of the applicants and the employees are already like working at that industry. You kind of bring in a different background and you can bring in a new fresh perspective, and I think that's what Andy does. And a lot of the time Emily is so preoccupied by the fashion and the different um, like opportunities that she can be provided by, that she's kind of like career orientated within Runway, and having Andy like be a little bit unbiased helps her to maybe succeed a little bit more because she's not as worried about things like Paris Fashion Week. But I do think Emily is a great assistant. I don't want to diss her like that at all. I think she is fantastic, and I'm also very excited to see where Emily is at now in the film as well. I do believe she has a much higher position than first assistant in the sequel. So I'm just excited to see how the characters evolve. It seems that Miranda is still the executive like editor or the editor in chief at Runway here in like the 2026 version of Devil Wears Prada 2. So I'm just wondering just how all these characters are going to come back together. I am a little worried for the sequel, if I'm being honest. I just don't think it's going to be as strong as the original, and I don't think the original is like a masterpiece. Like I said, I definitely think there are dips with like the Nate character and Lily and Doug, and how they're quite unsupportive of Andy and her aspirations. I feel like in the real world, you would hope that you would have a supportive nature. And even her father, like her father, obviously, I get parents being worried, and maybe that's not like the most healthiest relationship. And she's an assistant, so she's making pennies, right? But she's moved to New York, she's hustling, she just graduated. Like, this is nothing. She just graduated university. Like, you have some time to make a couple mistakes in your career. So I think getting this kind of assistant job with such a high positioned editor in the industry who knows so many people, you can really network, is such a great position. So it just makes me like, it bothers me so much that her family and friends are not supportive, because I would hope if I had something like this fall upon me, I would have a support system, because I feel like that's what you really need in these stressful jobs where you're working almost 24/7 on the clock. Just having a support system is something really important. And again, the end, like, I understand we kind of want Andy to kind of use her own voice and pick up and not fall into this like cult like mentality of being abused and in a toxic work environment. I respect that, but again, I feel like she could have been very successful at Runway, and I feel like she was just doing so well and she was hitting her peak. It just makes me sad that she like literally walks away and throws all of her opportunities away. Even though she still does get a great reference from Miranda, I think that is super important to show that she does prove Miranda right, and that she deserves to be in this space and deserves to be a writer and deserves to have her voice heard and deserves to be a cultural setter. So I think that is fantastic. And speaking of cultural setting, I do want to speak about the ceruleum speech, just because that is one of the most prominent cultural features of this film, just like a pop culture reference for days. I just think that speech 20 years later is so prominent, because even today we have so much trickle down effects, and we specifically see that like at fast fashion like Shein and Temu today. Like, years ago we didn't have that. When we were talking about Devil Wears Prada in 2006, we were talking about maybe a little like a Nordstrom or something like that, or I don't know, like an Old Navy. And now it's like Temu and Shein taking these inspirations from Chanel and Dolce & Gabbana and Valentino and Balenciaga, and taking these runway samples and just emulating them, and like AliExpress just completely copying them, taking pictures from legit websites and faking them on their website. Like, it's just crazy, like not thinking about what is going into these garments at all. So I think the ceruleum speech is iconic. It's delivered with so much integrity, and it's just beautifully delivered by Meryl Streep. Just a stunner, a classic, beautiful, incredible, so smart. I love her so much. She's never done anything wrong. I love this film, and like I said, I just think the attention to details, and I love the characters and the performances. Andy is just such a strong and determined character, and just to see her grow from this second assistant position, and how she's so like frumpy and doesn't really know how to put herself together in a respectful way necessarily. And by the end of the film, even though she is a little bit more eased off and she's not as dressed up in these designer clothes, she's still able to like put herself together in a little bit more of a respectable ensemble. I really love, and I just think Emily Blunt is just so sharp, and I just love how she is striving to really make a name for herself and impress Miranda and just do everything right as an assistant. I just think that is impressive to see, and Stanley Tucci is just such an iconic character in this, and all the advice and the makeovers that he gives to Andy is just so brilliant. And the whole like Vogue montage is basically because of his character Nigel, and also just seeing him at the end of the film and how he thinks he's going to get the James Holt position, and then he is sidelined for Jacqueline, all because Miranda wants to keep her job and she never confers in him, and he's like, she's going to pay me back one day, and Andy's like, is she going to though? And he's like, I don't know. But he continues to push forward, and I think it's voices like that as well, that they are really monumental to the fashion world. Of course, he's the only one that Miranda likes his pitch, at that one point of the film, and he really perseveres, but he often gets sidelined and doesn't get the acknowledgement that he deserves. So I think this film is super complex and it's not perfect, but I do think it is a brilliant film and I just love it. And it's definitely one of my guilty pleasures. I don't even think it's really a guilty pleasure. I just think it's such a fantastic film to watch. I will definitely continue to rewatch this film for years to come. I feel like it gets better on a rewatch, honestly. I just love it. I've seen it so many times. I watched it in my high school fashion class, like, oh, it was almost 10 years ago now, which is like crazy. So, yeah, I have a deep love for this film and I'm just so excited for the sequel. So let me know what you guys think about The Devil Wears Prada down below in the comments. If you've seen The Devil Wears Prada 2, let me know what you think of the film as well. I'll have a review for that as it comes out. So if you have post notifications turned on and you're a subscriber, you won't miss out on my The Devil Wears Prada 2 spoiler review, which will be coming out on Saturday. So make sure you guys are subscribed so you don't miss out on that. Make sure you give me a follow on all my social media platform as well. You can find me at Willow D Steele on Letterboxd, Serialized, Instagram, the Awards Expert app, on TikTok. I'm on all these platforms. Thank you so much for your engagement as it really helps to push me out into the algorithm for other like-minded people to find me. I'm just so grateful to grow my cinema loving community. So thank you guys so much for all of your gracious support. Thank you guys for continuing to watch my videos and to be subscribers and comment and like. I'm just so, so grateful. So thank you so much. I'm excited to see you guys at my Devil Wears Prada 2 spoiler review. Comment down there. Make sure you guys let me know. I'm so excited to give this a watch on Friday night and let you guys know all my thoughts on Saturday. So until then, remember to keep getting lost in film, guys. Bye.